Here it seems it's more a case of this agency has one little stack of papers, this other agency has a different stack of papers. Oh yeah, no, you can't have an easy time getting the information between them.
I could complain about it so much more. It's way worse than what you think.
I would, if you're up for it actually, I would love to hear from your perspective what you often come across. This is whether it's in the news or in talking to people you know, sort of misconceptions about immigration, whether legal or illegal, that you, again, in your personal assessment as an immigration lawyer, feel are often sort of floating around in the ether that actually is maybe not so true.
I feel like the perfect analogy for this is, we hear people say, just broadly, immigration is completely broken. That is true in so many different ways, but the context in which you're saying it is different. Because some people might be saying immigration is broken because companies cannot get the talent that they need from foreign countries. They need it in order to grow, and the immigration system makes it so hard to do it. Other people, when they say immigration is broken, is because they're family members that they cannot see each other. Other people say immigration is broken because people are coming in illegally. And so the illegal way is so much easier than the legal way, right? And so you're incentivizing the wrong thing. So everybody is looking at their own life and their own needs and their own wants through their own perspective of immigration. And they see it as broken, which, true or not true, there's certain things that can be better in every single respect. But I think when people say just blanket, there needs to be immigration reform, immigration is broken, you almost have to pry them well, in what sense? It's like if you complain to your friend, man, relationship sucks.
Right.
Well, in what sense?
Yeah.
Right?
That was actually the next thing I was going to ask, which was, because I hear this term a lot where they go, we need immigration reform. And then there's just no follow up to that. And I've often been scratching my head asking, what does that mean? That seems like a tremendously broad statement that I can't do anything with in terms of like learning anything.
Yeah. Immigration law as it is like a series of patchwork that's been done continuously over and over again. When people say they need immigration reform, the best way to think about it is you just need to tear the whole thing down and rewrite the entire immigration law so that it makes sense. Because over the years, every 5 years, sometimes 2-3 years, a new patchwork comes in and corrects something, but it only corrects it for a certain small group of individuals. But it's because the whole world keeps on changing, and the world is changing faster than Congress can take care of this immigration law.
And I guess in your personal work, what do you find are often, because it sounds like there are a lot of major issues with laws that are, whether they're outdated or they just don't work, like in as least technical terms as possible, assuming you are talking to someone who is not an expert in this at all, what are some of the big problems you run into in your work? On the work that you do, you keep feeling, I'm getting really confounded by these aspects of how American immigration works.
I have to say, as an immigration expert, the U.S. immigration law is already the clearest in the world in so many ways. The U.S. government, United States Citizenship Immigration Services, they put their own training manual online so anyone could see it. They put their regulations, they put checklists. So they already put so much out there for people to see so that people could do it themselves. Yet, because of the long drawn out nature of it, because of policies keep on changing, it is extremely difficult to encapsulate and to understand. And so people get into trouble all the time.
The sense I have is basically the US, it makes it super easy in terms of relative to other countries with this information, the rules and regulations being available online, you can read about them. But there are just simply so many of these things that for people to make sure they're always in compliance at any point in time is just very challenging. It's very difficult.
Yes, because one little small mistake and the whole thing can be ruined. If you get the wrong visa, if you change your status the wrong way, and there's so many different agencies involved, and each one is responsible for one little sliver of what they're responsible for. The consulate, the airport CBP officers, Custom Border Protection officers, and then there's USCIS government officials, and then there's actually more like the criminal courts. So if you do one wrong step, somehow it can have disastrous consequences. And even though the rules are simple for each step of the way, kind of, sort of, but one wrong thing could kind of ruin the whole thing. And, there's just examples and examples of this. And so even for practitioners, even for immigration lawyers, keeping up with everything is actually quite a feat. Every day you have to like read and understand so you don't want to give the wrong advice, And so, it's a complicated field in that sense.
And I'm going to take a guess that, of course, these agencies aren't talking to each other enough, in that you're going to each of these places one at a time. There isn't a streamlined process of, I think of like the medical industry where you've got your chart and it kind of transfers through a bunch of different places you go to. And it's not a case of, you have to have a new chart at every type of specialist. It's just like, these are your medical files and they simply exist. Here, it seems it's more a case of this agency has one little stack of papers. This other agency has a different stack of papers. Oh, yeah, no, you can't have an easy time getting the information between them.
I could complain about it so much more. It's way worse than what you think, right? So let me explain a little bit. The same immigration law applies differently to USCIS and the government in the US versus if you're doing a consulate abroad. Right? We're talking exact same fact pattern, same parents, same child, same investment, same wait time, everything the same. Okay?
What do you
everything
mean,
the same.
When you say it's different for the consulate versus the you said CIS. So what does there's a lot of explaining here to do because I am trying to learn as we go along. What does that mean? What are those two different things?
Okay, so the consulate, the embassy overseas, a lot of times they issue green cards, right? You go through the waiting process, the parent petitions you, you go to the consulate, you get the green card visa, and then you fly to the US and the green card gets mailed to you. So they are in charge of a lot of the green card process. But so is the United States Citizenship Immigration Services under Department of Homeland Security in the United States.
Okay, so if you're in the United States, okay.
Right? And two agencies, both granting green cards essentially, but one law applies to the USCIS is different than the law that applies to the consulate. So the same fact pattern, same father, mother, child, goes to the embassy and their green card is denied, but you come to the US and the green card could get approved.
I'm curious. So same group of people, but it would be two different sets of laws if you're in the US versus if you're abroad applying to a consulate. That's very odd. And I imagine there's a ton of other examples of that, of these weird inconsistencies. And it doesn't even make sense as to why there would be such inconsistencies for example, the same, it could literally be the same person.
Exactly. Same family. And we've done a lot of cases like that where the consulates deny them, we bring them to the US, adjust status, and they get a green card. I'm specifically talking about Child Status Protection Act. And agencies do their math a little bit differently. And so the consulates overseas are saying, well, I don't want to use that calculation method. It's like, how can you choose to use which math, right? But they can choose.
I would be curious to hear about, you mentioned the US is already the best system in the world.